Hi, I'm Jacqui. Welcome back. We talk about all sorts of things related to the subconscious mind and, well, life, because we're in hypnosis all the time. Did you know that? Okay, well, we're not in hypnosis all the time, but it is a brainwave state, and we do go into theta brainwaves at least twice a day, but most of us will go into theta and even alpha. Alpha brainwaves is our meditative or daydreaming state. So to understand hypnosis and natural hypnosis, let me explain brainwaves. So in chapter 11 in my book, we go into brainwaves, the science and the history. The science is about the brainwaves and brainwave states. So we go into alpha brainwaves, which is our meditative and daydreaming state. And there's a term called alpha blocking, like cock blocking, but alpha blocking. The alpha brainwave state is associated with daydreaming and meditation. It allows us to relax and function on autopilot. Many of us fluctuate between alpha and beta brainwaves throughout the day. Sometimes our beta brainwaves can hijack our alpha states, a phenomenon known as alpha blocking. This occurs when the conscious mind shifts from a relaxed, calm state to one that is more focused and alert. Too much alpha activity can lead to excessive relaxation, laziness, and daydreaming, making it harder to stay focused on tasks or remain present in the moment. On the other hand, insufficient alpha activity can disrupt sleep, contribute to obsessive compulsive tendencies, and increase stress and anxiety levels. I think it's really important to learn about brainwave states, and hypnosis is a natural brainwave state. It is not woo-woo, it is not voodoo, it is not what many misinformed church and religious leaders want you to believe it is. They don't want you to have control of your mind because, and get this, the battle is not for your soul, babes. The battle is for your mind. They all, politicians, religions, teachers, media, social media, AI, want your attention. They want your mind, and they want to control your mind. What do you think the CIA has been studying pretty much since its inception? Mind control, MK Ultra, the Monroe Institute. It's all about consciousness and the mind, because when they can control your mind, they can control you. So they weaponize and use language. They weaponize and use our emotions. They weaponize and use our traumas. And they weaponize and use religion and spiritual beliefs against us. They, meaning the Epstein class. Now listen, I am not a political commentator, and I'm not going to turn this into a political channel, because the truth is my work is nonpartisan. When I make a documentary addressing the suicide crisis, I'm well aware that I'm talking to people on all sides of the religion and political spectrum. I've talked to people who are complete and total nihilists and atheists who believe in nothing. And I've talked to super religious zealots who would want to hang me for not believing in the same beliefs they have. And suicide has affected everyone across the board. Rich, poor, Democrat, Republican, liberal, progressive, conservative, independent. It doesn't matter. My work is nonpartisan. When I'm making a documentary or a book or a hypnotherapy program about birth or postpartum, it is not for the conservative Christian religious people. It is for the secular people, because I am a secular people. I am not a Christian conservative religious person, and under no law would I ever be. It is really hard to ignore what is happening in the political landscape, because it trickles down to everything. And what we are learning is that, well, all of our world leaders and everything that we believed in, and everybody from the super woo-woo liberals like Deepak Chopra, who I don't know if he was liberal, but he was super woo-woo and oh my goodness. Okay, listen. I live in the outskirts of Los Angeles. And this is like woo-woo central. Some of the most insidious, fake, phony, charlatan, like soul-sucking, when you hear the word psychic vampire, these are that. There's genuine spiritual people, and then there's charlatans and phonies. Let us be very, very, very clear that any so-called spiritual guru, spiritual leader, politician, professor, scientist, philanthropist, actor, musician, anybody at all who went to Jeffrey Epstein's pedo island is a charlatan, is a criminal, and did very, very, very bad things to children and young women. Deepak Chopra, quote unquote, allegedly, for legal reasons only, is a criminal and pedophile, and he is not a spiritual guru. He is a charlatan of charlatans, and every single person in his spiritual circle, every single person associated with him should be looked at with the utmost scrutiny. From my personal lived experience, I believe in things, but I'm also very skeptical. I need proof, evidence to believe in things. And that goes for anything. And maybe I don't need documented scientific evidence, but I need to have my own experience with things. Like, for example, the house I grew up in, there was definitely some supernatural entity haunting that house. And there is all sorts of personal experiences that everybody but my mother has had. And I don't need a paranormal investigator to go in that house with EVP equipment to tell me that there was a ghost in that house. Oh, I know. I felt it. So did everyone else who walked down that hallway. And I understand that, for some things there may not be empirical evidence, but I need to have something, like, I'm not just going to take your word for it. If I haven't felt it or seen it or experienced it myself, why would I believe you? And that's how I am about everything. That's just how I'm wired personally. That's me. That's my subconscious programming. And that's a part of my programming that I have no interest in changing. It doesn't bother me. It's not a pattern that interrupts my life, so I don't care. Other patterns that I want to change, that's what I use hypnotherapy for, or, mind magic. Today's episode of Mind Magic Hypnosis is brought to you by Mind Magic, Understanding Your Subconscious Superpowers. Available now on barnesandnoble.com. I talked about my books in several of the last videos, and the books are here. And as you can see, this is not a big book. It is a very easy to read, easy to digest, small book. And I did this on purpose. This book has gone through many rewrites, and the reason I trimmed all the fat. I know that people don't really have the time and attention span to read books anymore. So I wanted to make a book that was not intimidating. I wanted to create a book that had all the important information, but none of the junk you don't need. In this book, I have covered so much important information that I really believe this book is more than just a book and is a tool that will benefit everybody who reads it. So I want you to read my book, and then I want to hear what you thought about it. A little later in this video, I'm going to read from the end of this book. I want to read from the final chapter in this book. The companion to the book is Mind Magic Workbook Mental Diet Journal. If you're familiar with the term mental diet from the law of assumption, law of attraction, Neville Goddard community, don't worry. This is not about manifestation. This is about diving deep into your psyche. There is limiting belief. There is inner child, a lot of inner child. There's getting deep within you. This is a book and a workbook, journaling book with 100 journaling prompts that are designed therapeutically to dig deep into your psyche. Basically, this workbook is meant to be your therapist in a journal. So if you can't afford therapy, I've got your therapist right here. When I work with my therapist, and what most people find when you work with a therapist is they're asking you questions. How do you feel about this? It's about getting to the root of your feelings. Why? Because every feeling is attached to a thought, whether it's conscious or subconscious. Every feeling is attached to a thought. When you dig into this and you find the thought behind the feeling, and you start to unravel it. It's like a knot. You start to unravel it, and little by little, you uncover the root. You have the answer. Then you've got your solution. So that's what I have done with these two. But there also could be good standalones. You don't need to read the book to get benefit from the workbook and the 100 journaling prompts. And you don't need to do the journaling prompts and the workbook to get the benefits from the Mind Magic book. But if you are like me and you're an introspective person and you're a writer, then having both will be extra beneficial. You can go to barnesandnoble.com or just bn.com and search for my name, Jacqui Blue, and the books will come up. There is an ebook version of the Mind Magic book, but there is no ebook version, and there will not be, of the Mental Diet Journal, because when you write with your hands, we are stimulating the RAS, our reticular activating system. So I want you to stimulate your RAS when you're using this book. And the other great thing about this, and it not being a digital version, is so much of your personal information is online these days. And when you write in a journal like old school, it can't be hacked. So it's a way to keep things a little more private and personal. And this journal is meant for you, and it's meant for you to really get to know you and be honest with yourself. And if you use this journal the way it's meant to be, and you're an introspective person, I think you're really going to get a lot out of it. So I've mentioned my documentary on the suicide crisis, and I am updating that. That documentary has a new title, more Jared Padalecki in it this time. I mean, it had a lot of him in it last time, but there's going to be even more this time. I've included my personal story, which I never did before. And there's more to update because suicide rates have actually increased since I released my documentary. We hit an all-time high in 2022, and it has remained high as of 2025. And I predict that suicide rates are only going to continue to climb under this evil Epstein administration. There's no denying that that's what this is. This is the Epstein class, and that's what this administration, everyone, is either guilty or protecting someone or multiple someones who are guilty. They are scum of the earth. I have never been a registered Republican. I have never been, much to some people's surprise, a registered Democrat. I'm not a Democrat. I just happen to think they are the lesser of the two evils that I'm faced with. I'm a registered no party. It doesn't even say independent because that's still a party. Whether you love or hate Gavin Newsom, and I don't love or hate Gavin Newsom. He has done some good for California, but I don't trust anyone, and I certainly don't like anyone who refuses to tax billionaires or wants to pretend on any level that billionaires are not bad people. Sorry. You can't become a billionaire without causing harm to multiple people and exploiting workers. Nobody becomes a billionaire by being a good person. But regardless of what you think of Gavin Newsom, he said this.
I think the most important thing, and I wish I understood this years and years ago, learn from, don't follow others. Your expression's unique. No one else has it. And I say that because one of the things I've discovered in my own life is every time I compare myself to someone else, it created anxiety, man. The comparison's the thief of all happiness. So this notion of discovering who you are, I mentioned it up on the stage today. Everyone has a story, and it's fascinating, unique. You see the world with a unique set of eyes. Your life is completely distinctive in terms of the experiences that have shaped it versus others. There may be commonality. There certainly is a lot more in common, but there's also nuance to that, and that's wonderful. Just stay there, stay present in that space. Don't put a mask on. I did. I was always trying to be someone. And I'm finally discovering myself and just letting go. Deep breath. We're all trying to be in a hurry. We're all trying to be something, be like somebody. But really the whole point of the journey, man, is discover yourself.
Yeah.
And if you could just stay there and settle on that, again, learn from, there's humility, great. And it's a hell of a way to live because you're living in the present. And you could be more to more people. You're more abundant. You're more open to experiences, adventures, things, advice, counsel. And I just think that's a big part of being a man and being a role model, being a kicker, because you're exactly goddamn right. It sure as hell ain't Donald Trump. And for a whole generation, it's been 10 years since they watched my kids. I got 2 young boys. I mean, they literally grew up and it was like their algorithms are this Peterson kid, whatever his name, yeah, and then then you got Kirk was all a big part of that, and God bless him, but it was all this, the Tate brothers, Andrew Tate, and all these, the bro stuff, and that's all the sort of Trump adjacent stuff. That's not what I want my young boys to turn into. That's about power, dominance, and aggression. The superpowers are empathy, compassion, and collaboration, care. Those are the values that men can really thrive and find abundance in their lives.
And this is exactly what my book is about and for. It's about your journey and discovering who you are and being authentic to you. But more than anything, right now, critical thinking, your critical thinking is so important. Your mind matters. You need to be the one in control of your mind. Get off the social media platforms. I can't take anyone seriously who tells me that they hate the billionaires, but then still uses their platforms. If you hate them so much, stop using their platforms. I did. There's a reason my books are on Barnes & Noble and not Amazon. That's intentional. Unlike Peter Thiel, I actually do want to see humanity persevere. I just want to see humanity work together with nature instead of going against nature and destroying the planet, because I don't think that's beneficial for anyone. Our medicines, our foods come from the earth. Why would you destroy the planet? We don't have a planet B. So who I am is a nature-minded person who, I'm not a total obviously I'm not anti-technology. I use it for my work. I make documentaries. I'm using a computer right now to make this. But we need to live in balance. And we are so out of balance with ourselves, with nature, and everything is extremes, and extremism is bad. Extremism is so bad. Just look at what it's done to us politically. Divide and conquer. They've succeeded. And how? They've used NLP. They, as in the Epstein class, has brainwashed us, all of us, me too. I'm not immune to having been susceptible to the brainwashing that the Epstein class has been doing our whole lives that we're just now learning about. For example, I grew up in South Florida. There was a mall called the Pembroke Lakes Mall. My stepsister and I were total mall rats. We were at the mall all the time. So was the John Casablanca Modeling School, where they were constantly telling us we had unique looks and we were so beautiful and we should sign up for the school. So we did. And they called us, and we actually went down to the school with our parents, my stepdad and my mom, and me and my stepsister. And we had a whole meeting with the people, and something about it rubbed my stepdad the wrong way, and he was like, no, we're not doing this. When you go to the school, you pay them to train you to be a model. And if you're selected, you get to go on all these modeling shoots to these exotic islands. So basically, it's really insidious. Your parents are paying for you to be trafficked. This was happening in the 1990s, South Florida. They were recruiting, or should I say trafficking, young girls right out of the Pembroke Lakes Mall. How's that for a mind fuck? So I've been sitting here thinking about how my stepdad very likely possibly saved my stepsister and I from being Trump Casablanca victims or survivors. Let's also make a big distinction in survivors and victims. Victims are dead. Victims die. These women that are speaking out, they're not victims. They're survivors. And I believe that there are 4 things that happen to people that suffer trauma and severe trauma like that these women have, or the trauma someone lives with when they're almost killed by their spouse, or sex trafficked and essayed by politicians and princes and royalty, that kind of trauma. 4 things happen: either suicide, drugs and alcohol, which can also lead to suicide, or they become helpers. They start nonprofits. They go out of their way to help other people who have been in their situation. They write books. They become speakers. They become the helpers. They become advocates. They spread awareness. They share their stories because they don't want other people to suffer what they did. Or they become abusers and they do unto others what was done unto them. And it seems like some of the people in the Epstein files who are survivors also trafficked and did unto others what was done unto them. And those people should also be in prison. I understand trauma because I live with it, but it doesn't consume me. It doesn't control me. I have found healthy outlets, and that's why I share my story. Anything that I share on here or about my story or in my books is not because I want sympathy. I don't want or need any sympathy. I'm sharing it because I know I'm not a one-off. I know that there are other people who need to hear my story. I know that talking about it is not for me, but it's for whoever else needs to hear it. I know that sharing my story has already saved women's lives because they've told me. So I know the power of sharing our stories. I know the power of relatability. Relatability creates connection, and connection saves lives. And every single person in the American federal government right now is a criminal, or they're protecting criminals, which is just as bad, if not worse. The display that Pam Bondi did in front of Congress, we have a defense mechanism for that. It's called deflection. She walked in there, and instead of answering a single question that was actually asked of her, she went in there intending to just sling mud. Go off script, don't answer questions, and just sling mud. Now, what would happen if you or I went before a judge and anytime a question was asked, all we did was sling mud at the judge or the counsel, opposing counsel? I'm pretty sure you or I would be held in contempt of court. There would be jail and fines because that kind of behavior is disrespectful and very immature, very unprofessional. And that's what the AG did in Congress. She should be in contempt of Congress. If that's not a thing, it should be. Nobody is above the law, and that means Bondi too. Anyone who's pretending to be a religious leader and saying that these people are righteous and they're preaching hate, the hate preachers, these are not godly people. They're leading you straight to the hell that you don't want to go to. That's where they're leading you. I want to close out this video reading a little bit from this book, from the final chapter, because when I was younger and I was picking up new books, I always read the last page of the book first. So I want to read a little bit from the last chapter of this, also because the last chapter is the most personal, and I feel like that's kind of where it all pulls together, right? Take all the information that I've given you in this book, and then we get to a little bit of my story. Metamorphosis of the mind. I changed my mind, and it changed my life. Positive mindsets are characterized by optimism, resilience, and proactive approaches to life's challenges. Negative mindsets are more aligned with pessimism, anxiety, and avoidance. Our thoughts and beliefs shape our perception of the world, as well as influence our decisions and actions. Consider the idea that heaven and hell are states of mind. In this context, heaven represents joy, peace, and well-being, driven by a sense of purpose and fulfillment. Hell, on the other hand, represents anguish, despair, and suffering. It is a state marked by dissatisfaction, emotional turmoil, and a lack of inner peace. At the end of my marriage, my husband and I were sleeping in separate rooms across the house. The marriage was over, and it was just a waiting game on when he would move out. We were two people who were coexisting under the same roof, but living in two very different states of mind. I made peace with the idea that my marriage wasn't salvageable at this point, and instead of mourning a relationship that brought me so much misery and kept me in a state of hell, I was looking ahead towards a brighter future. I was slightly concerned about raising my 5 young children on my own, but I was also thrilled with the freedom that came with being able to come and go as we wanted. We'd now be able to visit as long as my children and I wanted at my parents', grandparents', or a friend's without having an angry and hostile man ringing and texting my phone constantly, demanding we come home right now. Although I fought for my marriage with every ounce of strength I had, in the end, I lost that war. And when I made peace with it, I started to see all the positives that could come with a new chapter as a single woman. I was excited about the possibilities the future offered. I was inspired with creative ideas again. I started writing again. Something inside me found a new sense of motivation to succeed and show my children that dreams are worth having and going after, and that nothing worth having comes easy. But if you believe in yourself, put in the work, pay your dues, and don't give up, your goals are always reachable. Instead of seeing my children as something to hold me back, I saw them as motivation and the best reason to pursue my dreams and goals, and not give up on myself or what I wanted out of this life. During this time in my life, I woke up with a fire in my spirit that burned bright. I didn't see roadblocks. Instead, I saw challenges and obstacles to overcome. I stopped fighting for a marriage that was long dead, and I started living for me and my kids. I had a reinvigorated, optimistic outlook on the future and all it could bring. My cohabitant, who was sharing my physical living quarters, was not in the same mental state I was. Physically, we may have shared a space, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, we were worlds apart. He was full of despair and hostile towards everyone who crossed his path. He saw nothing but roadblocks and enemies everywhere he looked. He had no hope, and the future looked dark, lonely, and scary. He blamed everyone for everything and took no accountability or responsibility. He was in a state of hell. Shifting from one mental state to another, or going from hell to heaven, starts with a change in perception and the ability to reframe negative thoughts, beliefs, and experiences, cultivating an attitude of gratitude, as they say, and expressing appreciation for the positives already present in your life is one way to begin approaching heaven mentality. Remember what I said about starting small with this one. And if you're not naturally wired for optimism or have a hard time seeing the positives in your life, did you eat today? Gratitude for the food that you ate, or for the roof over your head, and for the clothes on your back, is a great and simple place to start if you're trying to shift from a negative to a positive mindset. I had been stuck in my husband's hellish mindset for a decade, and it hurt for a long time until one day it hurt less, and the pain continued to decline until one day I woke up and was excited, inspired, and motivated to embark on a new chapter and give my whole life a makeover. I was sick of what was, and I was ready for change. When I enrolled in a film program and started taking classes, creative inspiration flooded my mind. I started writing comedy, sci-fi, and murder mystery stories in the form of screenplays. I hadn't done any creative writing since before I got married, and now I couldn't stop the flow of ideas. I felt like I was tapping into a part of myself I had long lost to marriage and kids. I was getting reacquainted with myself. I was rediscovering my likes and dislikes and finding that I didn't like all the same things I used to in my younger years. I also discovered that things I hadn't liked before were now appealing to me. I was evolving, and I liked it. One of the things that helped me maintain a positive mindset during this time was taking care in my appearance. During my marriage, I was so depressed so much of the time that I put minimal effort into how I looked unless I was going out in public or visiting friends. But now I was putting effort into looking good even if I was staying home all day, because I realized that if I thought I looked good at the start of my day, it had a positive, albeit small, effect on my overall mood and mindset. My outer appearance began to reflect my inner feelings of joy and peace, and the magic started to happen. I noticed that things in my reality began to shift in a more positive way. When I was going to film school, one of the instructors brought a woman to speak to the class. She was a TV and film producer and CEO of her own company, the Florida Media Market, and a single mom of twins. She mentioned that she was looking for interns. I introduced myself to her after class, and we exchanged contact information on the spot. I became her intern and right-hand woman. When my internship ended, she hired me, and I continued to work for her until I moved across the country. When I was working with this woman, I met an older musician who was hired to do camera work at one of her events. He and I became fast friends, bonding over our love and appreciation for and knowledge of music. We began working on a passion project related to the South Florida music scene of the late 1970s and early 1980s. Suddenly, I found myself traveling all over South Florida interviewing musicians. This is when I learned about another inspirational woman named Sheila Whitkin. Hearing all these male musicians praise Sheila Whitkin, a single mom who was one of the key players running the South Florida music scene at the time, while I was working with another powerhouse woman who was also a single mom, gave me the push I needed to believe that I could accomplish my dreams and goals too. I now had a couple of strong women to admire and look up to with the utmost respect, accomplished single moms. This made the idea of being a single mom more endearing and less scary. I told myself it wouldn't be easy, but it would be worth it because I believed that the hard work would eventually pay off. If I believed in myself and worked hard without giving up, I would eventually get where I wanted to go and actualize my dreams. And that's all I'm going to read from this chapter for now, today, because I want you to read the book. So I don't want to spoil all of it for you. But through trauma, I was able to grow and evolve, and I did write some of that in here. How I went from lying in a pool of my own blood to making films, documentaries, and writing books. I got to raise my kids. I went from lying in a pool of my own blood, not sure if I was going to see the next day, to now my oldest son is having a baby that's actually due tomorrow. By the time you see this video, my oldest son might have a baby. And I was supposed to die 15 years ago. So read my book. Do what you got to do to take care of yourself, because the world is getting weirder and crazier, and I know that people are not really doing okay right now. So you need to find ways to take care of your own mental health. I will see you next time.